I'm actually extremely happy and honored that we are meeting in person. I will not talk about the panel. Simone is the moderator, will do so, but really we have a really high level panel when it comes to fashion and sustainable fashion. Let me give you some background. Why did Simone and I decide to have this event? Because we realize that whenever we talk about SDG 9, we always talk about what is called the heavy industry, oil industry, steel, transport, but never fashion. And somehow fashion is considered something light when it comes to SDGs. Yeah, I mean, let's talk serious. It's like fashion is entertainment, but fashion is actually one of the industry that is the most polluting in the world, beside all the labor issues that I'm very sure you know about. So we dived into SDG 9. SDG 9 says when we need to build resilient infrastructure, promote sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Well, voila, the fashion industry can do this. Then there are specific objectives that I would like to keep in mind, both for the panelists and the people here. The objectives are developing quality, reliable, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, increase the access of small-scale industrial and other enterprises, in particular in developing countries, and financial services, upgrade the infrastructure and retrofit industries, and enhance scientific research. I'm pretty sure that people in this panel have one way or another contributed to one or more of these objectives. So, as I said, we always hear about how polluting the industry is, but we never hear about how much the industry is doing to change its face, to change its operations, to change the way it works. And we know there are imperatives coming from regulation. We all are aware. Actually, we are one of these organizations that dictate regulations. But we also know that a lot is coming from the customer, from the client. So a lot is coming from you, going to retail shops and making your choice. And these choices then permeate up to the level of the decision makers like those we have at the table. So what we do today, we deep dive in the fashion industry with these eminent representatives, and we ask them really to tell us how they are making this change, how they're implementing for real in their sectors for their responsibilities. And you will see we have a variety of sectors, but also a variety of roles. All those represented in the panel and then joining us online have different roles and different way to act for sustainability. So let me just tell one last thing, as we have the chairman of the Italian Fashion Chamber of Italy. I was part of the Sustainability Fashion Award in Italy, and I have to say I've seen this happening for real. It's not, when we talk about sustainability in fashion in the past, it was really people putting, well, we had this image of, okay, I mean, this is not really fashion, it's something kind of hippie, ugly, on the ugly side is not real fashion. No, 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 these times are over. We are really talking about high level design. We are talking about big names of the industry. We are really talking about the Italian Chamber of Fashion, for instance, really going out and find excellence wherever can be found. And it's really through this excellence that we can change the sector. I always say that we have a precedent that worked very well, and it's the food industry. We went from fast food to slow food. People understood very well that it was better for them to choose slow food than to kill themselves with slow food. We cannot say that fashion is the same thing, because if you wear polyester, maybe you're not killing yourself, but we don't know, could be. But this is also a transition from fast fashion to slow fashion, and there are many ways of doing it. And I think each of you is doing its part in a different way. And I'm really interested in knowing how we do this. This event, of course, is also recorded. So it's not only us or people outside or online that are connecting and listen what we are saying, but then it will also be used, hopefully also as dissemination material outside of the boundaries of the Palais. I'll stop here. I leave it to my moderator. And of course, Thank you so much again for all being here in such a busy day. Over to you, Simone.
Thanks, Paola. The merit of this meeting goes only to Paola. She's the mastermind behind that. She kindly associates me to that, but I'm nothing compared to my friend Paola Deda. She defined the speakers, the panelists of today as eminent, so I will address you as his or her eminence, as you are eminent people. And we have an incredible lineup. Let me introduce them to you. We have Carlo Capasa here, who is the chairperson of the Italian Association of the Fashion Industry, Chamber of the Fashion Industry. We have a CEO for a very innovative fashion brand, the first big corporation in the fashion industry, Riccardo Bellini. And we have an expert of education to tackle the future of this industry with the new generation, Donato Medici, NABA, NABA, Nuova Accademia Belle Arti in Milano and in Rome. And then we have my friend, Ana Belen Noriega Bravo, who is an expert in forestry and sustainable forests and so on. And she's also the Secretary General of PEFC Spain. Then down there you have my friend Gigi Gia Obradovic, who is an expert of human rights in the industry, but who also puts things in practice by managing an innovative boutique here in Geneva, whose name is Downtown Uptown. And online, last but not least, we have Sina Trinkwalder, the founder of Mano Mama, a circular brand producing clothing and bags, and committed to, I use your words, Sina, use what already exists. We are supposed to have today also with us Samantha Pattinson, the CEO of Red Carpet Green Dress, who leads a lot of innovative organizations to empower women. As soon as she joins us, I'll give you a head up. Some housekeeping. I will ask you 3 questions. The first question is in common for everybody. I'll give you 3 minutes each, and I'll be very severe with this. So you've got to be careful when you reply, to remain within the time limit. Then I'll ask you a second question, each different to each of you, and you'll have 3-4 minutes if you want again. And then I'll ask you a final common question that requires just a very straightforward reply answer, and that's 1 minute. I'll be the timekeeper of the day. We tackled today, we speak, of course, about Sustainable Development Goal number 9, which is technology, infrastructure, industry, innovation. We tackled its 3 important aspects of sustainable development. We tackled that from the point of view of innovation. We have many, you can see innovation from different points of view. You can see innovation from the point of view of materials, of processes, and you have a lot of innovation going on. You have new materials. We'll see something about this with Ana Belen. You have good processes. I remember when I was young, some side of this was like 2 centuries ago. Some sides of this industry where in the leather industry, you had the huge problem in treating effluents and so on. Today, there are technologies, there are systems that solve the problem. You have the possibility to source energy from renewable sources. You have a lot in terms of hard innovation. Nevertheless, this industry is lagging behind the schedule. In terms of emission, UNEP emission gap report says that if we want to remain on the path of the Paris Agreement, we need to cut emissions by 55% before 2030. Only 1 brand out of the 10 major brand signatories of the UN Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Action is on track for that. In all the other cases, emissions rose over the last years. And we all know that climate change is connected to depletion of biodiversity. Climate change and problems in biodiversity, they reinforce each other. They are connected. We keep on using too much of the natural capital of the world, and the circularity rate of this industry is still appalling low. Why? Because that's an issue of governance. There's an issue of putting sustainability at the center of the business model and using all the possibilities that we have with new technologies, with new education, with new materials at use within the framework of an organization that is devoted to build what we call stakeholder capitalism, a form of capitalism that produces value for shareholders, yes, but also for the planet, for people, for communities, for workers, for everybody. We speak today, we tackle this issue of innovation from that point of view, and we see how the new technologies, the new materials can contribute to that. But it's an issue of governance, an issue of business model, an issue of embedding sustainability at the heart of the business model of the company. And we start with the first question, 3 minutes each. I start by Carlo Capazza. I start by you because you represent the fashion industry. In Italy, 75% of luxury productions are made in Italy. Guys, you've got a huge responsibility. So the question is, how can the fashion industry build resilient infrastructure and foster innovation to promote sustainable industrialization, to promote a sustainable industry? Over to you, Carlo.
Well, thank you very much, Simone. Good afternoon, everybody. I think, first of all, we have to start to think that you cannot be sustainable on your own. If you want to be sustainable, the whole process, the whole industry must become sustainable. So we have to be together, we have to cooperate, to collaborate, and this is probably what association, like our association, they have to do. We have a huge responsibility in Italy. If you want, we started to work with the different 8 tables we have inside Camera della Moda, where all the major brands participate and they share all what they what they got in terms of sustainability. And plus, we have many outside collaboration. We think that what is very important is first creativity. How you create something, you have to start to think that when you create, it must be already sustainable. Whatever you think must be thought until the end of life of the product. So from raw materials, new alternative and sustainable materials, but also the way you build a product is very important. And this, I would say, must be a circular design, eco-design, circular design. This is the beginning. Second is the development of manufacturers. This means innovation in the process, innovation in methods and technologies. We are working very much. The world has been changing in this sense very, very much. We have a new process using, for example, the carbon dioxide, transforming it in fabrics instead of using the petrol, the fabric coming from petrol. We use many natural other substances to create new fabrics, but we also use a new process where we don't use water, for example, or very minimal water. So all the area of process is very, very important. Then we have the social responsibility. We cannot think to be sustainable if we are not sustainable in the social terms. We have to take care of the respect of the workers. We have to take care of having security and a fair wage. Also there, we have a huge study in Camera della Moda, almost monitoring all the planet of fashion. And now I have only 3 minutes, so I cannot explain you about
30 seconds.
Okay, the last seconds I use for the end of the product. That means how the end of the life cycle of the product. This means we have to think what's happened when the product it goes to its end. There are new processes to reuse everything, mostly, not only in fashion, but also in other business. We have to think that something from fashion can, when we think to circular economy, is all around all the industries. And this is another very important matter.
Grande Carlo, 3 minutes straight. Annabelle, foster innovation for sustainable development in this industry. Over to you, 3 minutes from now.
Yes, okay. Well, we can thank you, first of all, for being here. Thank you for inviting us to be here. Very honored. Firstly, the fashion industry can promote sustainable industrialization by adopting sustainable sourcing practices. This includes sourcing materials from sustainably managed forests and using recycled or alternative materials that reduce the pressure on natural resources, but also collaborating with the stakeholders, suppliers, customers, policymakers, Then SFM can provide guidance on practices that promote biodiversity conservation, maintain soil fertility, water, and support local communities also. Also, through SFM, Sustainable Forest Management, sorry for the acronym, we can foster innovation in the fashion industry by providing opportunities for new product development. We can also create value, investing in research and development. For example, forest-based materials such as viscose, modal, lyocell, copro, and so on, can be used to create eco-friendly fabrics that are biodegradable and recyclable. SFM can also support the development of sustainable production processes that reduce the environmental impact of the textile manufacturing. For instance, the closed loop systems for water and chemical recycling. This kind of materials are quite suitable for this kind of processes. So focusing on biodegradable and recyclable materials create designs that are meant to last for as many years of use as possible, which is one of our main things. Also, through SFM means also can foster innovation. Can build resilient infrastructures by providing reliable and sustainable supply of raw materials. SFM practices can help to maintain the productivity and health of the forests and ensuring consistent supply of timber and other forest products. Cork, for instance, for the shoe industry, resins. There are a variety of materials coming from
30 seconds.
Coming from the forest that can be used. So we believe that with a joint effort and helping to the forest producers, we believe that sustainable prescription is one of the main things that can help to the whole chain of value of the forest. So if the industry falls to sustainable sourced materials and certified materials, we will have it.
Grande, 30 seconds, Donato. Okay, tackle that from the point of view of education, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, sorry. Very bad. There is not a class. No, sorry.
Thank you very much for being invited as a representative of NABA. Well, yes, actually, in my view, and basically, and also what is the contribution from an educational point of view, is really looking at the cycle of the production of a garment or an outfit. And I always think about the Italian way, where we always think about bello and ben fatto, which is basically a translation of nice and nicely done. And I do think that in this paradigm that really the Italian fashion has grown over the last 30, 40, 50 years, you can put sustainability inside. You can put responsible production. And this is actually what we need to do also from a university point of view. We need to embed in DNA of these young people that, by the way, they are much more sustainable than us. They are asking us as a university to be at the upfront of this innovation and this, let me say, new way of producing, let me say, garments. What we need to put together is the creativity and being able, with this new production, with these new techniques, to have always something that is bello and ben fatto, which I do think that in Italy, but also around the world and in the main fashion industry, is something that we want to do. It's something that where people need to be used to saying, okay, but what was cool yesterday, tomorrow is going to be cool, something that is naturally sustainable. And the life of that garment needs to be much, much higher than what we have today. So the durability, or let me say the biodegradability in a quick way, is fundamental in the development of this garment. So this is a link, I think, the way that education and industry can really contribute together.
You are incredible. You saved almost a minute. More than a minute. So, Riccardo over to you. Over to you. 3 minutes. That's the question. Foster innovation to promote sustainable development.
I'm gonna start so, but thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. So a few words maybe on Chloe, and then I will explain in what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna approach the answer on the concept of business model. No, not to repeat also what has been said already. Chloe is luxury fashion house, 70 years old, of 70 years of story. It's over 1 billion in terms of sales globally, so at retail value. So it's a big company, produce almost 1 million pieces a year of ready-to-wear accessory, and there's a huge global impact on many, many different. We became B Corp. We are the first luxury house to become B Corp at such scales. And we did it from two considerations. So I'm going to explain that experience. The first consideration was a pure competitive consideration. Consumers in the world over time will demand companies to have a point of view on this topic and to take responsibility and accountability for the externality. So we need to have an answer. We can have an ethical approach, we can have a pure business approach. We need to be consumer thinkers. The second was a general consideration, because we did this process after COVID, where COVID shows that we live in a system which is an ecosystem highly interconnected of supply chain, people, society, economies, and that the well-being of this ecosystem and the well-being of the economy is strictly connected to the well-being of society and planet. And that's a fact. So as a company, and that's the role of every company, is to future fit for the future, to be ready to compete in the future. If you want to thrive in this ecosystem, you need to move from a logic which is limiting, which is a primary financial logic, how I maximize my financial value, to a logic of much larger, which include environmental values and social value as part of your metrics. And that's the big transformation that we did. We shifted the mindset, and then we talk about the business aspect, the business model, on simply looking at a company from what was supposed to be in the past a shareholder model, so just financial metrics, how you define success, to defining our success on the basis of what we call stakeholder model, which is the value that we create financially, the value that we create socially, and the value that we create environmentally. And this is simply the way we now manage the company. B Corp allow us to give us an operating model to get there, because it simply tells you where your gaps are and what you need to do in order to move in that direction. So it's an incredible accelerator, a managerial tool, but it also gave us a cultural change, because the fundamental concept of B Corp, which is what we love, is that business, from being part of the problem, can become actually a big driver of the solutions, by simply operating in a logic of stakeholder values versus shareholder values. 3 years after, because we became 1 year and a half ago, we started the process years ago, we made lots of progress. We made lots of progress on the things that are here today. So in sourcing, in materials, we changed a lot of things. We made a lot of progress on communication, which is, going back to your point, people underestimate the cultural power of fashion in talking and in making sustainability sexy, in changing consumer perception, because we define what is cool, what is not cool. We define what is beautiful, what is not beautiful. That's the only industry that does it. So as an industry, we have a responsibility, I think, to bring sustainability at the core of our narrative.
30 seconds.
So we made a lot of progress, which I will answer in my second questions, and we are on the progress. But I just said one thing: to do this, now we have a simple action plan with financial goals, social goals, and environmental goals that defines our path in our business model, which is published on the website. You can watch it, and that's how basically we manage our business in very simple terms.
Thanks, Riccardo. Punctual as usual. Gigi, innovation for sustainable development. Over to you, 30 seconds. Go.
I'm coming from an interesting perspective that I worked 20 years on human rights, and now I run my own business. I've had 10 years interaction with the consumer. And so the perspective I have, I like to think is quite holistic. And I'm surprised that the fashion industry is still not the front runner of sustainability, because everyone wears clothes and shoes. And so it should be. A lot of the campaigns that started in the 90s still haven't managed to make traction. So I'm hoping we're now going to, post-pandemic, come to this. And to build on the SDG 9, as we've heard already, I find interesting parallels between the work I've done on human rights and gender insecurity. Gender insecurity in particular was it's difficult to make changes in systems and mentality and cultures. And so it's a bit like that in the fashion industry. And Shein is one. I'll come back to the elephant in the room later on. And to build a slow fashion resilience, we need to be human rights centric, which is already mentioned here. And that goes for all types of industries. So if you're looking, for example, at infrastructure in the big scheme worldwide involves construction and regulation. And don't forget Bangladesh. If the fashion industry is not working with that industry on building construction and regulations, then you're falling down on your sustainability. And then if we're looking at digitalization accessibility, everyone has e-commerce online now. And so you have to look at the factors, what is the sustainability in the digital area and how fashion has interacted with that. And then workers are one of the most important for me because that's the base of everything. And too often it's listed last after climate change. They're bundled into human rights over here, but they're not. Humans, that's us, the people that make our clothes, the people that create the raw materials, the people that voyage it around the world, and us, we are human, we wear fashion. And so I really think we need to be very clear and make it very human rights centric, the dignity in the fashion world to make that sustainable.
And 30 seconds to go.
Oof, okay. So I'm going to jump then to, I'm skipping sustainability because that's a whole other question and needs a lot of debate. The innovation, I'm going to go back to Shein. There was an article on Shein, which is the Chinese fast fashion group, if no one knows, which has gone absolutely crazy. Why is everybody liking Shein when everybody knows its negative aspect on the fashion industry? Very curious article that was published last week is that it's exciting. And so what does excitement make? It builds desire. And as we said about Chloe, if you've got to look at that, why are we not making sustainability in fashion desirable? And there are many facets that we'll go into in my next 2 minutes. Thank you.
That's
so much.
very good. Sina, last but not least, you're online. You have your 3 minutes, even 30 seconds more, because you've been so patient waiting for that. You've been rewarded. Over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. And yes, there were said a lot of things, but I come from a completely different kind of thoughts, because I started Mana Mama not because of producing fashion or clothes. The idea behind Mana Mama was to give job opportunity to women who are, let me say, so-called handicapped. After 15 years of this project, our task changed completely. Now we have the task to give a good example for a very sustainable kind of work in the fashion industry. And as we have heard, fashion industry must be more sustainable. And if we remember, fashion industry was sustainable when it wasn't an industry, some 100 years ago. And that is the idea we have to keep in our mind, and also the inspiration. What can we bring into the future from the past? That is what we do. First of all, one of the most important things for me is to source in a radical regional way, because then we have also resilient infrastructure. Convit learned us this situation. On the second, we have a lot of fabrics all over the world. We always talk about recycling and new innovations and so on and so on, but we don't need it really, because we have more than millions, billions of fabrics all over the world. Thus, let us use the stock still existing, and that is what we do. So that stock, because it's very easy to create and to design on a new paper, on a white paper, but it's much more interesting and to give beauty and design in existing material. And this is really absolutely sustainable. Lucia, I think this is the point, what we have to do, first of all, if we talk about sustainable fashion industry. And last but not least, if you keep in your mind the landfills in Africa and also in other countries, full of fashion, not rubbish. It's only fashion. We produce too much. We have to produce less and quality which lasts longer. These are my words.
Thanks a lot. You just used 3 minutes. You didn't even use your extra allowance. You are incredible. We go to the second round of questions, and now we have a specific question for every panelist. I start by Anna Belen. Anna Belen, it's over to you this time. You speak about sustainable materials. We know that 65% of global fabric consumption, more or less, consists of synthetic fibers derived from fossil fuels and so on. We know that the remainder is heavily influenced by cotton. There is good cotton, rain-fed cotton, organic cotton, but it's a minority. The majority requires a lot of irrigation and a lot of pesticides. We know that there are, however, new technologies that can produce renewable and biodegradable wood fibers. How do we promote the use of these things without depleting our forests? How do we bring these two apparently contrasting needs together? Over to you, even 4 minutes if you want. Vai. Mamma mia.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I have some, I have some good news, and it is that here we are the forest sector. The foresters, we have a mechanism which is the sustainable forest management. So we put it in place. It is not something that we have ourselves thought, but it's a mechanism that we have agreed about what do we call sustainable forest management. And then we have different definitions, but if we come to FAO, for instance, speaks about balanced environmental, economic, and social objectives, and aims to maintain the forest ecosystem services and biodiversity, while also providing economic benefits and improving the livelihoods of local communities. So we have a bottom-up approach. Building on this SFM scheme, we have my organization, for instance, has created a certification scheme. What does it mean? It means that we come to the small producers with a bottom-up approach from the ground to the society and try to implement this SFM criteria with a guarantee of verification. So it's people are notified, and we come to the smallholders and family forest, because forest is not that easy to come to the forest, and to people, they don't really know sometimes how to manage properly the forest, or they have lost the history of forest management. So we're trying to help them in this manner. So in this bottom-up approach, we find the top-down approaches like sustainable development goals, and then we find that we accomplish many of them coming from the forest. You can think of many of them. We speak about cities, sustainable cities, and so on, or textile, and then we come with solutions from the forest. What do we need? We need the industry to help us. How? If we have a sustainably managed forest, we need that every single product that comes out from this sustainable managed forest and certified forest, we need to trace it to the whole chain of value. But everyone has to be committed to the sustainable origin of the materials. And then if we come to the big brands, we need the big brands to be confident and to help people on the ground by asking for this kind of mechanisms like certification to accomplish the, sustainability. But also, for instance, I give you an example. If you have a chain of custody in a textile company all over the world, you have a PLC chain of custody in place. Then it means that people working there are covered by the 8 main conventions of the ILO, including
that's true.
including excluding child labor, or forced labor.
The fundamental rights.
Fundamental rights. Yeah, that's it. And it is, you have to, because every year they pass an audit. So it's a way to make, because they have, we know that the remote places have lower wages, but we need to, that the human rights, as you mentioned before, Gigi, are covered and they are not only covered, but they are guaranteed. Okay, so that's our approach, and I think that that we need to to be confident, and we need to jump on over the shoulders of the big ones to help people on the ground to be visible.
Thank you. And on time, Paola, you had a comment on this.
I just some food for thought.
Yes.
I may imagine myself if I were Ricardo or any other CEO of a big company. 60% is polyester. We are saying ban it. Right now, the UN is also negotiating a convention against plastics. So eventually it'll be phased out. 30% cotton. So we know that cotton is consuming water and everything. Okay, certainly we can increase forest-based, but we cannot substitute with forest-based. Otherwise, we have no forest. So just a comment to say, people who are managing the fashion industry have a big dilemma in front of them. Because unless we also find new ways to produce textiles, certain choices are imminent, but there are no substitute. So in my opinion, we should never forget also the important roles of recycling, because a lot is out there. The waste is waste, but we have to eventually come back, even in luxury, we'll have to come back, because otherwise, guys, unless we find it on Mars or on the moon, we don't have enough resources. So just a comment on that. You know,
Thanks, Paola. Very clear.
Fixed on materials. No, we're not.
Very clear. We all agree. It's a good comment, and we agree on that. A point on housekeeping. Samantha Parkinson is not able to join us online. We have one panelist less. We'll allow some more time to you guys. Riccardo Bellini, you spoke about your experience in creating the first B Corp in the industry of fashion. And we have a very straightforward question. First of all, can you share what the major sustainability milestones have been for Chloé, and what are the next steps in your sustainability journey? We know that sustainability is not a recipe, it's a journey. It's a lifetime journey. You never stop. And then, if you have time, what are the key learnings that we can draw from your experience for the wider industry? Over to you, 4 minutes from now.
Okay, very concretely, in the moment in which we gave ourselves KPI and objective on sustainable matters, so footprint typically, and so social footprint and planet footprint, we went into looking where the impact was, what were footprint and the source of the footprint. In the fashion industry, the primary source of the footprint is always the supply chain, and it's the raw material. It's as simple as that. So we went to attack the key starter. For us is 58% is coming from raw material, and then scope 3 is 95%. So we started to attack the biggest bucket. Now, the biggest change we made actually, and that was also what helped us to concretize it in the reduction of emissions, was the change of raw material. Now, so we move, and actually there are many things that can be done. It's just a matter of choices. We shifted we went from a 5% weight of low impact material in our collection to now over 60%. And that was a huge impact. And it was moving towards fabric that today exists, that come from ancient times, which is the linen, the hemp. There are many materials that are all tough choices. We stopped cotton, which is for a fashion house is a big choice, but we made a decision to stop the use of cotton. And now we are moving into recycle options or upcycle options because they offer a low impact solution. We did not have it. We are going back there. We went from virgin cashmere to recycled cashmere. We still have some virgin cashmere. So there is a process, but there is a lot that can be done as soon as the entire company has this as its key performance factor and incentive system. So that's basically one of the major progress because it's very tangible. Then we shifted our supply chain towards higher weight of social enterprises, World Trade Organization. We move millions of units. If you give it to this supplier or for that supplier, you can change the life of communities in a huge way, or you can actually foster things that you don't want to foster. And we have now over 20% of World Trade Fair organization. We support a lot of fantastic women-led social enterprise. Our purpose is about women, so we focus on these issues on gender equality. We did a lot of work there. We did a lot of work on education, young girls, and because that's a key subject to giving an opportunity. Being women empowerment, one of our key purpose, we focus on education girls. And now a big project that is actually unleashing today, as you can only measure, you can only improve what you measure. If on environmental aspect, there is a lot of system today to measure your footprint. On social, there are not many standards and KPI that you can use to really understand the social impact you have on aspects like equal pay, gender equality, or also community. So we launched with the university and academics 2 years ago a social P&L. Doesn't exist in the world. We qualifying the social P&L as we speak with our industry leaders, and we will use it as the extra tool to measure our, in our triple bottom line, the social aspect. So we have financial, environmental, and social. The ambition, I think, and I stay focused, and I can talk also about the communication we did, because all these things we are communicating, and we have a responsibility to use our platform to influence consumer about all these elements, which is working. We are getting a lot of support. But looking at the future, I think the real challenge, and it's not a challenge that we can fix ourselves alone, is to really shift our supply chains, and I'm talking raw material, towards a regenerative business model, because that's where the solution is, really moving from a system of exploitation and extraction to a system on inclusion and regeneration, and changing entirely the supply chain. And that's something that cannot be done alone. It's something that requires private sector, public sectors, and partnerships. But we'll talk this at the end, collaboration.
Grande, Riccardo, thank you. The social profit and loss account is a great piece of innovation. In this industry, we know about environmental profit and loss accounts. A social profit and loss account is a big step.
It's an eye opener.
It's an eye opener. It's an eye opener. It's an eye opener, and comes towards measuring the impact on society, because at the end of the day, it's impact on human and social capital. We pass to Sina, who is there online. We have a question for you, Sina. In your book, you have written about greenwashing. You are an activist on avoid greenwashing. We have the new discipline, European discipline on substantiating sustainability claims. It was just approved in the parliament. Now it's there for consultation. What can we do in this industry to stamp this practice of greenwashing out? Over to you, 4 minutes.
Okay, what can we do to stop, to reactivate dignity in the supply chain? That is really one of the most important things, to secure our supply chain and to install transparency. Because if there is made in Germany or made in Italy on a cloth, it must not be made in Italy or made in Germany. Only the last few steps. That is one of the really big points also for the customer, because they would like to consume a good product and they don't know everything about it if they cannot get the transparency they desired. On the other hand, it's very difficult to explain, but I will try it. I don't share the, let me say, positive opinion concerning recycling, because recycling is not the best solution of all. To produce less is a solution, and to produce a better quality is a solution. What have we now? The truth is that recycling, first of all, is a trend. It's something like a marketing strategy, to be honest, in my personal point of view, because at the moment we hear about textile companies who buy bottle producers in order to have access to PET bottles and to exploit the recycling trend. We don't solve concerning the petrochemical fibers. We don't solve any problem concerning the microplastic. We really don't solve the problem. Recycling always means, in the current situation, downcycling. we talk about recycling and the customer imagine, oh, recycling is okay. I could be in the same consumption mood as every time, but that's not the truth. The truth is we need new material to get the same quality as the last material and recycled. Without sorted material, recycling doesn't work. We made a lot of experience the last 15 years with the university, with the regional university here. We were the first company who installed the recycling circuit concerning organic cotton. It's a nice game, it's a nice thing, but to be honest, it works in a small scale. If we really would like to install recycling, we have to design our products completely different. We have to design it sorted, but no one would like to produce it sorted because it's completely diametral to the long-lasting product. No one of us would like to sew a T-shirt with a cotton thread. No one, because it doesn't work. And this is what we have to keep in our mind, what we have to be true to say, okay, recycling could be a nice idea, but if we really would
Sorry,
like
Sina, you have 30 seconds, go.
only 20. If we really like to install recycling, not in a greenwashing way, we have to change our complete design process and production process. That's as an example.
Thank you very much, and thank you for pointing out the point of recycling. We know that in circularity, the real points are about extending the life cycle, reuse, renting, lease, blah, 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 blah. We know that the point of eco-design, of planning, of designing for sustainability, for disassembly, we know the importance of the use of materials. We spoke about that are regenerative, that can be regenerated, that are sustainable. Thank you for pointing out this point. We pass now to Donato Medici to tackle the point of education. Donato, we are all of the opinion that we need to advance students' learning on sustainability, and most of all to keep the management and the creative minds of the future in this industry with a solid solid knowledge of the topic. What direction does the educational sector need to take to be able to significantly advance innovation in sustainability? 4 minutes for you, start now.
Okay, so I would say that I will start from the fashion course, the traditional fashion course that you normally get in a university, probably in some universities still now. And basically the concept of a BA in fashion course, you normally sort of learn to build a collection. So you normally concentrate your time and your efforts in history of fashion, so understanding also the trend setting and trend forecasting, developing a mood board, from the mood board, developing your own collection, picking up the materials, but also the materials that you add into your mood board are sort of, you get them sort of like from a supermarket, from a shop. You don't really understand the material that you're using. You just get it because it's cool and it's nice for your collection. And then you start to develop your collection. So you do all your sampling until you arrive to your final collection and you do your fashion show. So this is basically, in a nutshell, a little bit the 3-year course of a fashion design student. Now, in my view, and the education needs to enlarge this section. And it's still important because it's about style. It's about defining something new, something trendy, something that is nice and that is good for the society. But we needed to extend at the beginning and at the end this course. And when I'm saying that, I'm saying that at the beginning, you need to educate and really educate the student in order to understand the material that you're using and how this material is built. There is, I have to say, very little knowledge in the past in the education system on all the level and all the, let me say, methodologies of producing certain textiles and, let me say, the supply chain across the production of this textile. So that's why we need to invest in laboratories. We need to invest in understanding that these guys, they need to use really their hands in understanding what is about dyeing, what is about lining, what about wearing. So understanding, and from that point of view, you can really embrace sustainability and responsibility in the production of their garment, because they really understand. You go a little bit back, so you start to use the methodologies that were used with the Greek and with the Romans. I mean, we are talking about 2,000 years ago, but they're still effective today. Yes, then you can put them on a bigger scale from an industrial point of view, but they need to understand this piece. If you extend this piece, and on the other side, you also extend the lifelong of a collection, so the durability of this collection. I mean, 2 years ago in NABA, we inserted in the course, let me say a pack of lessons on mending, to mend a garment. I mean, we are so used to when it's broken, when we don't like, we just throw it away. But what is about, I mean, when I was a kid, I had probably my sweater or my trousers that I really loved. And I mean, my mother probably has mended my sweaters 20 times because I really loved that sweater. But that is about, yes, it was about because maybe we didn't have enough money, but it's about also sustainability. It's about putting back some things that we have sort of forgotten in the society, and maybe our society has pushed. All across that, I think that also digital technology is another important aspect. Digital technology, and there are very, very good systems today that can really decrease also all the activity around the sampling and around all the activity that you do on that side. The fashion is something that is really learning by doing to a certain degree. And I think in the responsibility and the sustainability, we really need to do learning by doing.
Extending the life cycle starts also with education at the level of consumers, at the level of the academy and so on. Thanks. Last but not least, my friend Carlo. Carlo, you are the president, you are the chairperson, which is responsibility here, but you are the chairperson of Camera Nazionale della Moda Italiana. You coordinate the work of so many brands and also the discussions of so many brands. The Ethical Fashion Initiative, we participate in these discussions normally. Can you share some example of how coordination across the Italian fashion industry has advanced this objective of innovation for sustainability? The role of policy in shaping the industry. What are the policies that have influenced more the industry in its path towards sustainability? So the role of coordination, the role of policy, up to you. You have 4 full minutes for you.
Very good.
What do you want more in life?
Well, you know, as I said before, by creating this kind of tables, working all together with mostly of the brands, with CSR expert and outside expert, we could.
What you call tables, these are coordination groups within Camera della Moda.
Yeah, coordination group in Camera della Moda is working tables. We could share all together some good practices. For example, I agree with Sina when she said that there is not recycling if you don't start with eco-design. And this is why we started with a table about eco-design and in general a table about circular economy with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation also, where we talk about this. Because if you don't approach properly, the recycling doesn't work. It's true that today, when you talk about repairs, rental, resale, is only 3.5% of the business and could become by 2030, on our study, could represent 23% of the business. That is a business of 700 billion. So it's true that we can increase all that. It's true that we can increase all the traceability and transparency through blockchain. We have tables where we discuss about blockchain in our association. But we've done also many other things. For example, we publish the guides on chemical in product and another guide about chemical in process with the numbers, exact numbers. And 92% of the industry in Italy is using those guidelines. And this was a huge result. We are
as a result of one of your coordination groups.
Exactly. And because we published those guidelines about chemical in product and another guidelines about chemical in process. So this was a good something we reached. Sometimes we talk with the government in Italy and in Europe, and sometimes it's very tough because they don't really understand the peculiarity. For example, when we talk about durability, they think of durability in a wrong way. Durability is about the product, the final product. You cannot talk about how durable is a piece of plastic that is stay there for 500 years. And the wool probably will disappear in 1 year. That's good, not bad. So we have some problem when we talk, and we are in the PEF group in Europe, and we discuss very much because the lobby of fast fashion is very strong in those political groups, and they push very much to judge the use of and the consumption of goods in a wrong way. If you buy a bag or garments, you keep in your wardrobe and you probably give it to your daughter and the granddaughter. This is durability for us, and it's difficult to define, but this is what is durability. It's an emotional durability. So we are trying to work on all this, but what is the main huge problem, in my opinion, where we are trying to face, we have many other tables, for example, on the ocean, we have respect of the ocean, we have biodiversity,
you have human rights,
diversity, inclusion, diversity. We have actually a decalogue about inclusion, diversity. So, but what is the main problem is how we measure sustainability in fashion in a common way, because today we have so many different practices, so many different tools that everybody is saying, I am sustainable, probably because they use a little story of being sustainable. And this makes this famous greenwashing very diffuse. So we started a great process, in my opinion, that is with the Ethical Fashion Initiative, actually, that is the study of the ESG due diligence tool. What does it mean? It means to create something that everybody could refer, where you can measure your status of sustainability in fashion, specific for fashion, because we have ESG for the industry, but we don't have anything specific for fashion. So we start these 2 years. We are working on this. We hope we could publish those tools by this year. But this was a huge work involving all the companies involving ethical fashion. And together, I think we could reach one point. Yes, we could reach something that could make a very clear idea of what is sustainable and what is not sustainable. Obviously, technology can help us on this. At the end, we have to arrive to have products that are fully with full traceability. We have to have a product that complete transparency in all the aspects of the relation with the workers and so on. And we have the ESG that should be common to all fashion business. This is what we are trying to do.
Due diligence, thank you for mentioning this. The new Supply Chain Act, the forthcoming one of the European Union, will contain a provision for mandatory human rights and environmental due diligence, assessing the sustainability risks in order to manage them, to mitigate them, to minimize them, to eliminate them, and then to report correctly. You have been extremely good, guys. You stayed within the time, so we have, instead of 1 minute, we have 2 minutes for this concluding question. But sorry, Gigi, sorry. I had put you before. Sorry.
Now we are back to 30 seconds.
Gigi, we are back to 30 seconds. Gigi, forgive me. I had put you with 2 questions at the end. My big mistake. Over to you when we reference to the fact that MSMEs represent 90% of business worldwide. What is the role of small and micro enterprising in achieving sustainability? How do you manage sustainability here in Geneva at the local level, at the level of retail, with your retail point? You work with many small companies that are your suppliers. How do you manage that at the level of the retail place? Sorry, I wanted to ask this at the end, but you say so. I ask it now. You have your 4 minutes and I will shut up now.
No, thank you. I can be quick because my boutique is here in Geneva, so you can come and see it and ask more questions there.
We are all coming after this.
Exactly, exactly. As an SME, a lot of achievement is by consciously choosing our action, our business model, the practice and the consumption. And gasp and horror, profit comes secondary. And I think if all businesses started to look at profit as coming secondary, we are proof, we are a profitable business, rare in the secondhand industry, that it is actually possible if you change your focus. And so what we do is we make our boutique desirable, a bit better than Shein, I hope. And so what we've found as our solution is that we do all the hard work of getting the sustainability for the consumer. I'm probably one of the few people here that I interact with my customer every single day, and it's very fatiguing. It is exhausting. It's hard work because people are exigeant. All of us are demanding when it comes to paying out of your pocket for clothes. So what we do is
Do they also demand about the origin, the story behind the product?
No. This is a surprising thing. A lot of people don't care, which is astounding. Having worked for a long time in human rights and being in the center of human rights, even my UN customers don't care.
Really? Wow.
I hate to say it, but this is why sustainability needs to be in the DNA, because it's very hard for a consumer to read all the different labels, understand all the millions of mechanisms we've created. So we do it for them. So we sort of check ourselves for sustainability. So I hope that, we're not greenwashing. And so what we do is we have two aspects. In fact, we have ethical fashion, which is new, small, local brands ethically, and we have secondhand. Unfortunately, the ethical we don't concentrate on too much because it's very difficult to sell and you don't want to have excess stock. So now we've moved to a consignment-based model, which we do for both secondhand and for our new products, because it's sustainability within itself, because that means your suppliers, be they actual supply chain, new products, or your secondhand sellers, they're engaged in the process. And when you have engagement as a consumer, that is where that link is to sustainability, because it's here. It's not out of sight, out of mind, it's in your mind.
Interesting.
And so that's what we actually do. And I'll bring it into the education aspect, because 10 years ago, my husband and I constructed this. He comes from Hermes background. He worked at Hermes. I come from human rights. We constructed it so as we can educate people on slow fashion. We talk to the people in the shop. I style them. I explain how to create a wardrobe, how to mend things, and how it fits. The reason why fast fashion is so popular is because you can choose things that don't fit and throw it away. We explain to people how to make things fit.
You can make mistakes in choosing.
Yeah, and so that's sustainability is, my last comment is that it really needs to come down to more the small aspect. And particularly with secondhand is a warning to everybody. No one's talking about this. It's saturated. The secondhand market is saturated. There are more sellers than buyers, so we have to be very careful for the sustainability aspect of that as well.
Thank you very much, Paula. You had a comment on this.
Well, in general, on the reselling market, and just because the other day I was looking at the reselling market and discovered, because I'm not a sneakerhead, that actually there are websites that resell new sneakers. And then I said, okay, but who's doing this, right? It's such a small market. So the market is at the moment at 10 billion, it's projected to be by 2030 to 30 million billions, 30 billions for reselling them. So we cannot ignore the reselling market, because that's really also the market that is booming.
And it's a key part of extending the life cycle of the
You are
product.
talking about sneakers, so a really teeny tiny part of the big fashion world.
So be aware that there's not the demand for that 30 billion. We have to be very careful with that.
You have to be very careful, because you say consumers are not always ready to pick it up in
There's
the
more
shops.
supply than demand, so we need to be very aware of that. Secondhand is sustainable like everything.
An important issue we have to keep in mind. Again, we are on time. We go back to 1 minute each for the final question. I started by Gigi. I wanted to ask you two questions, but now I ask only one because the previous one I have already asked it. And we start by you. What's the most challenging practice or pattern in the fashion industry that should be changed, in your opinion, to achieve sustainability? There are many things, but what's the one that you would point out? You have 1 minute. Go straight away to that.
I have 4,
No, just one.
but they're all linked. I think the social aspect of the business needs to be considered when we have 50 million in slave labor. A lot of that is in the fashion industry. The sale and discount culture in the fashion industry needs to be stopped. And I think the big brands can help in doing that because it devalues for the business and for the consumer. The barriers to small, medium enterprises, we provide that in our shop because financially it's not possible for a lot of ethical businesses to enter into market.
And the
Barriers
fourth?
to market. And the fourth, the consumer. Our delightful consumer, which is us as well, we are a bit too demanding. And I think we need to understand that we can't just have everything we want all the time. And we need to really concentrate on bringing value back into aspects.
Thanks, Gigi. Sina, over to you, 1 minute. The most challenging practice or pattern you would have changed in the industry for sustainability. 1 minute.
Here I would like to quote Theodore Vivian Westwood. She said, buy less, choose well, make it last. That means for us as a producer, sell less or produce less. For the consumer, buy less. Choose well concerning garment, fiber, fabric, concerning the environmental aspect, the production and the product for the customer, and make it last. Invest in quality, and the customer has to invest in a better, responsible laundry care. And nevertheless, to be honest, but this is really my absolutely personal point of view, the whole part of the creating fashion industry have to cut a small slice from the, let me say, and you will hear it, maybe Italian attitude concerning fashion, because there exists a high priority.
Few seconds to go. Over to you.
High purity and pure passion, and these both values are the best base for long-lasting quality.
Thanks for your comments and laundry, introducing also the care, laundry, and those aspects. And thank you for mentioning Vivian Westwood. The Ethical Fashion Initiative was born along with Vivian Westwood many years ago. She supported the Ethical Fashion Initiative for 12 years, sending orders to marginalized communities in Africa every single season. That is commitment and continuity. Sustainability is also about continuity. Carlo, over to you with this very straightforward question. Single challenge, the most challenging practice of pattern you see in getting.
I will say something completely unexpected. If we want to have a more sustainable fashion, we have to stop fast fashion. That's it. This is the first. Because mostly of the overproduction is made by fast fashion. Most of the pollution is made by fast fashion. Most of the use, the fast fashion story is based on production before you sell. And then they try on few stores if the product works. If it doesn't work, go to garbage. It's a huge amount, 30% of the product, they never see the floor. So it's a huge amount, huge amount that goes to be destroyed every year. I think we are talking so much, how can we make a better fashion, more sustainable? Let's stop fast fashion first. In Italy, we have more demand than suppliers. In Italy, the supply, we miss 40,000 people, workers, because we cannot produce enough for the demand of a high quality at the level of passion, as Sina said. And this is something important, means that people, they are ready to appreciate something that is made properly. But if we don't stop fast fashion, we don't
And
go
your
anywhere.
words are echoed in a document, in a policy document of the European Union that says exactly no more fast fashion when it talks about sustainability in the industry. So that's a huge issue. I'm asking Anna Belen to tell us what's this single factor you would get changed now, a minute to you.
Carlos said it already. Thank you, Carlos. That was my point. And well, I think we need to have to focus on SDG 17 to cooperate among us, because otherwise we cannot do it. We are participating and try to participate at like the Social Forum of Fashion in Spain, for instance, or the Circular and Sustainable Fashion Week, these kind of things. But I hate when I come to, when I see advertisement of fast fashion related to forest, and then the forest is always there, forest, and sustainability and sustainable origin, and always forest is used to speak about sustainability, and nobody cares afterwards. At the end of the day, nobody cares about those forests that they use and the images and the advertisement and everything. So please be very sure about how are you sourcing. And we are working also with Caritas. They are taking from the clothes from the containers in the streets. And we have to, as I think Sina said before, try to do real sustainable fabrics so we can recycle properly. That will be one of the things. And last but not least, but I want to find, and I cannot find it, my mother's Chloe coat, which was beautiful. And I remember her with this brown, beautiful Chloe coat and her brown leather boots, and I cannot find this.
And maybe Ricardo in the archives of Carlo, you have the comment on Anna Belen.
Yeah, I would like to understand it very fast. You know, we made the research on 25 different countries, 80 departments, or what new generation thinks is most sustainable brands. The second brand the new generation thought was the most sustainable is H&M.
H&M. I didn't mention it, but it was my.
This is a problem. When we talk about you know, when we talk about advertising these and these, and we talk about greenwashing this. So young generation, they think that this is the second most sustainable brand.
What was the first?
Gucci.
Okay, and so we give the floor to Donato, the single aspect, the single pattern or practice you could change for the industry to be sustainable.
Okay, well, yes, definitely I would agree with my colleagues that purchase less and purchase better is something that we need to put in front of our decision-making process. But I would add also the fact of natural low-impact dyeing, and the fact that a garment can change its characteristics, its color during its life. And that is something that is natural. It needs to be nice. This less is more. So this should be a new aesthetic from my view, where this kind of change and blossom of coloring over the year of a garment needs to change, and is something that is cool.
That's a beautiful statement. At the AFI, we make fabric in Western Africa. Among the many things we make, and we use natural dyes. And often our clients in the industry tell us, but the color changes over the year. It's a positive property because we also change. If you see the color of my beard, it's all white. Ricardo, I wanted you at the end, because you tackled these points from within the industry. Yeah. You are an innovator, you are a thinker. When you think about the most challenging thing, I know there are many, but the one that in your opinion you would really change in the industry for a B Corp like yours or like many others to flourish, what's this aspect? Tell us something. You are a thinker. We wanted you at the end because we want to listen from you. Go.
Thank you.
A big responsibility.
I think that's the elephant. It's the elephant in the room for fashion and industry. And I hear you all. I don't have a solution, but combine decoupling growth from emission, and that's the issue. We talk about overproduction. An economic system, business needs to grow. This whole concept of consuming less, producing less, it's all right, it's not going to happen. I mean, systems and company needs to grow. And now you combine that growth with lowering impact, it's nobody has the solution. And, how you move from intensity to absolute, intensity emission to absolute, nobody has the solution today. It leads to overproduction, that's the fundamental issues. And I think we need to all look at our face. And I said, we all try to find solution, but we are trying to grow, and to grow means driving more consumption, driving more production, right? And that system, we live in an economic system of infinite growth, but with very limited resources that are very finite. That's the things that needs to be changed, or we're all going to be in serious trouble, no matter how much solution we find. I don't think a company will produce less. I don't think company will accept to grow less. I don't think no stock market will accept to grow less. I don't think consumer will stop consuming. We just need to give them the options. And it's
the point that you make, it's a very important point, actually. It's a very important point because it's how to bring together sustainability with the logic of the economy. And again, it's the issue of stakeholder capitalism. What value do we produce and for whom?
Yeah.
Through our growth, through our activities. It's also the debate between development and progress. We need to look at progress, which is progress in the humankind, which is progress in social capital, which is progress in environmental capital, and what are the tools to do that.
I have one point, because I think it's also on this topic, because I don't have the solution. I don't think nobody
has it.
It's charming and naive to think a company can solve it or a government can solve it. That's a real challenge. SDG number 17. It will only come out of a strong collaboration between the private sector, bringing innovation, speed, and manageriality, and the public sector being rich and power. And that's where I think we are at test as
it's a super great point. We are in Europe. This is the forum of SDG 9 sustainability for Europe. The European Union is advancing legislation in that sense to make this collaboration possible. The new directive on corporate sustainability reporting, which is mandatory from the reports of 2024, published in 2025 for big companies, goes towards this direction. The new Sustainability Act, which is in the making, goes towards this direction. The new legislation on responsibility of the producer goes towards that, the eco design and so on. And the new directive, which is approved by the parliament and which is in consultation on substantiating green claims, goes to that. Because if we don't have a common ground on what is sustainable, this collaboration in between the public policy and the regulator and the industry and consumer becomes extremely difficult. Paola, we open the floor for questions, then I have a final comment. You had a question, Paola, over to you.
Just more of a comment, more than a question, because I think another...
With a comment.
Let's go with a comment. Another elephant in the room is affordability, right? Why does H&M exist? Because most people can buy there. And, not everybody can buy Chloe. So the change, and then we heard what Gigi said. I mean, people go and don't ask about the sustainability of the garment. So you said they don't care. So having the majority of people that don't care, or they're even misled, they think that H&M is sustainable now, sustainable business number 2. I think that will also be the issue, how you introduce sustainability in affordability, so that also becomes almost natural. I think, however, that there is a little bit of more consciousness in young generations that I can see, at least is part of that, also is part of the education. It was just a comment. I don't know if you want to react.
It's a good comment, actually. Affordability is all affordability for people who cannot afford to dress properly. We have these famous 20 pieces of garment produced every year for each inhabitant of the planet, but we know very well that there is sheer inequality and there are people with many of them and people with nothing. So there is also an issue of tackling general inequality, but there is the issue also in affordability, the issue also of things that last more, that are more expensive, but that last more, things that are made to last and so on. So These are all points. Today we touched all important aspects of sustainability. Sustainability is a journey, a long-term journey. Nobody has the recipe to be sustainable, but there are some points of reference, some benchmarks to keep ahead of us. And we'll mention them in the closing remarks. Do you have any question for our panelists? You have them at your availability. It's a unique opportunity. We have a very shy public, and you have been extremely good, and the positive side.
I did the question, but I think Ricardo answered already before I asked.
Before you ask. You see, Ricardo is incredible. He captured it. He understood it.
Public is not passive here.
It's the public is not passive. We have a huge public online. If I don't see any, there is no way to collect questions online, but we have a comment from Anna Belen. Over to you, Anna Belen.
Thank you. My comment is that if we don't have demand, we need to offer this kind of product. So the offer, it has to come from the offer, but because there is not a demand already on the ground, from the consumers. So we have to educate consumers, yes, but in the meanwhile, we have to offer sustainable materials. And there is a second part about communication. Communication. How can we fight against this fake communication that leads people to think that these big fast fashion companies are the most sustainable? How can we fight?
The law needs to do it.
How can we do that? How can we communicate in this?
By law. By law.
By law.
I mean, this is.
Thank you, Anna Belen.
It's happening at UN.
Yeah.
It's happening. Yeah.
Greenwashing UN resolution.
Yeah.
Sorry.
European Union.
And taxonomy, yeah.
European Commission. We have some questions and some comments in the chat. We have a question from Freda, and it's how would you address diversity and inclusion in the sustainable fashion conversation? It's part of the human rights issue. Who wants to reply to that? Go, Carlo.
We have actually, as I said, in 2019, produced a decalogue about what a company should do in fashion to include diversity. And every year we monitorize the companies, all the brands, if they respect what is the program. I think it's a huge issue, is for sure part of the social aspect of sustainability. And the day that we understand that diversity is a richness, we understood what does it mean diversity. When we look at a garden, at a beautiful area in the world, there is so much diversity, different flowers, different plants. Some of them, they are a little bit broken. Some of them, they are very tall. Some of them, they are very little. And we love them all. We have to learn how to love all the human being. And
all the human beings.
Consider diversity as
richness.
Richness. Strange. It's just cultural.
Anything from your side on this point of diversity and inclusion? Other panelists, Ricardo.
I think again, it's and everybody I think believes in diversity. Fashion has always been nurturing in the forefront. You just have to make it a KPI, measure it, and demand it. That's the way you address it. I think there will always be good companies and bad companies. If you want to address it systemically, you make it a KPI, you measure it, and you oblige company to publish it.
Publish it, exactly. Measure and publish. We have also comments in the chat. I think both comments are about affordability. Your point. One says, I don't see the name of the person. One says, my concern is the price of sustainable fashion immediately excludes a large population. The other one says, we mustn't forget the cost of living crisis, which forces people to some extent to go for cheaper options and want to feel good by instant gratification. There are so many economical and social factors at play. We agree with that. There isn't a single recipe. We completely agree on this point. It's a complex issue to bring together from the point of view of the environment, from the point of view of the planet. Our panelists, your questions, your comments, your presence, they all allowed us to have a few important points. We all spoke about materials, the life cycle of the materials. We all spoke about the importance of extending this life cycle. We all spoke about the importance of design and education, but we all spoke about human rights, the importance of the human factor, the importance of the human factor, and the importance of seeing also the expenditure, the investment of a company in terms of investment in human and social capital, which is the building fabric, the building block of one of the building blocks of the world in which we live. And we have another elephant in the room along with fast fashion, which is circularity. Circularity, it's a tough element. We've seen it from the point of view of natural materials. We've seen from the point of view of extending the life cycle, regeneration, and so on. But I want to close with a point that we just mentioned, and Riccardo mentioned it just now, KPIs, measuring sustainability. We are going to a world, at least in Europe, thanks to the European legislation of corporate sustainability reports that must follow more or less the same scheme. This will take the industry to a point. Today, we can compare financial reports because they're all produced according to international accounting standards, but we cannot compare corporate sustainability reports because they are done in many different ways. In some cases, they are pieces of creative writing. This means that if I want to carry out comparison among companies in financial things, I can do that. I can have ratios and all the rest. In sustainability, it is more difficult. And comparison is the reason why you have these reports. By comparing them, you understand where one company stands. This is important also for investors. Do not forget that all the big rating agencies, Moody's and so on, are equipping themselves or have already equipped themselves with capacities to evaluate corporate sustainability reports, ESG. It's important for the public, for the planet, for the future, for investors, for everybody. We speak a lot about traceability. Traceability is very important, very, very important, but it's more important to know what you do and what is the impact of what you do. Not only where you make things, but how you make things and what's the impact of that. Today, we got a lesson from you panelists. We hope to develop this lesson and to meet again in a year from now with what happened, to see what happened in between. It won't be furious change, but it will be a bit of that incremental change the humankind needs to achieve sustainability. But for one thing, emissions. If we don't cut emissions by 50%, 55% by 2030, we are not living on a sustainable planet. That's the big caveat of today. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.